that there's no shortage of hidden history. There's books that came in and out of print, and they talk about parts of LA history that we don't generally know, or hasn't been passed down, or isn't in general currency. How do we get, and you've been working on some of these projects, how do we get those hidden histories out in the world?
Oh, that's an excellent question. Because that's kind of what I do. I found after working in television and being a writer, the first thing I had to learn was this auteur theory thing, which says directors are in charge of everything. And I kind of went, no, not really, because you can't direct a bunch of empty pages. You need a writer who writes something wonderful that everybody wants to remember. And we have somehow gotten to a world where we forget them. So all it is, I think, is about education. It's about talking. When I talk about famous female screenwriters from the silent era, there were more women writing than men in the silent era. They essentially helped build this town. But as soon as men took over and studios became big profitable places, they all kind of disappeared. And they shouldn't disappear from history. But one of the things that happens, and this happens to TV writers and whatnot, there's a thing that in academia, blah, blah, fancy words, but they call it the unreliable narrator. We trust the wrong people to tell us our history, right? It's the classic, oh, the winners are the ones who are telling us the history. It's not just that. Issues like, here's an example I give my students. When Alfred Hitchcock was interviewed for his autobiography, he said he learned everything he knew about directing from a middle-aged woman from America. He didn't even name her, and it turns out her name was Eve Unseld, and she ran her own production company at Universal in the 20s and 30s, and they had sent her to England to fix their failing studio in England, and there she met this young kid who was like, I want to be a director when I grow up, and she taught him how to do that. And he didn't even have the kindness to put her name in his autobiography. So she disappears from history. So we have to find these stories and tell these stories over and over again, whether it's in print, whether it's in public, whether it's in whatever we do. Podcasts are a beautiful thing. So I think it's about education, which is why I'm interested in working in an MFA program, because I get a lot of students. Mine is based on the female gaze. And a lot of my students come to me and think, oh, I've taken a history of film class. I know everything there is to know about film. And then I stop and say, the problem with history of film is it's the history of directors, which is the history of great men. You don't know the names of most of the women who've written the things that you've paid attention to, and you don't even know the name of the writers. I mean, the crazy thing is many of us are writers, and we're not focusing on the work of writers because we're focusing on the work of directors. So I make them, students tell me their top 5 movies, and then who directed them, and then who wrote them. And they always know who directed them, and they don't always know the names of the people whose dialogue they're repeating over and over with their friends all the time. Like my favorite line is, you don't say to your friends, oh, my name is Inigo Montoya, you killed my father, prepare to die. That's not the director. That's William Goldman. That's the writer that you're repeating. You should know his name before you know who the hell put the camera somewhere. So I think it's education, that we have to keep telling ourselves these stories out loud. And then you tell your friends and you go, I just learned this new thing. And pretty soon it's like, oh, Eve Unseld taught Alfred Hitchcock everything he knows. And now we know both their names and we honor both of them.